Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Omar Davids. I'm a youth development coach. I've been in the business of youth development as well as amateur and our lower tier franchise football. Been doing it for quite some time. My interest in youth development and maximizing youth development, it all kicked off after our 2010 World Cup. And having known about our Professor Ted Dumitru in his time at Kaizer Chiefs and Sundowns, which I feel that was the best time of our football, the quality of football that was on display, and obviously leading to the success of 1996 AFCON champs. And being a staunch follower of our local football, 2010 just encouraged me to look at why are we not producing the product that must lead us to success at national and international level. So I embarked on a study of Professor Ted Dumitru's work, Maximal training, and we eventually got him to conduct a coaches workshop at the end of 2013 in Cape Town. We had approximately 50 coaches or so there. It was an overwhelming success. And from 2013, 2012 onwards, I've been using Maximal training both at youth level as well as amateur. I did some work at SAB and ABC level as well. There's been good success. The product of player development has improved. I'm currently coaching under 7, under 9. I also teach at the special needs school. I'm also busy with a local club. I coached under 18 as well as the senior amateur team, Bowling Box and Magic FC. And I also went to a few coaches that's open to be introduced to Maximal training. That's just a little bit of background about myself. I think it's important for us to know who we're talking to and where we're coming from and where we hopefully will move towards collectively. Okay, over to you, Sudesh.
From Johannesburg in South Africa. Thanks for everyone tuning in. I think this was in some new discussion around football, not just in South Africa, the African continent, but globally, especially in developing countries. So we feel that we should create a network of people, like-minded people, who want to see the game developing around our continents and globally. We feel there's not enough information going out. We feel there's not enough knowledge being shared. People have access to knowledge, especially on developing football, but we tend to keep it to ourselves. So I think we should look at this pandemic, although it has brought a lot of strife, a lot of struggle, but also it has brought about a new way of thinking. It has brought about a new way of living. And we feel through technology, through these Zoom meetings, we can still interact, empower each other, share knowledge, educate each other, and who knows what can happen going forward, you know. I'm glad to see there are people of diverse backgrounds in football backgrounds. We don't just have coaches here, we have conditioning coaches, we have football media, we have coach from USA, we have coaches from India, we have some football enthusiast colleagues from East Africa also. Please bear with us. It's the first time we're doing this, so it's obviously teething problems. And we have people from different parts of the world. We also know there's Wi-Fi restrictions and variables. But are we all fine now? Vimal, are you fine there? Vimal, in India.
Yes, all good, coach. Yes, all good. I can hear you.
Boys, Boys in USA. Boys Kumalo. Boys Kumalo.
Yes, sir. I just gave you the thumbs up. I'm good.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I've got a small screen here.
My
All right.
bad.
I think getting back to the purpose of this, and once again,
Once again, you're muted, coach. We can't hear your voice.
is that all right?
Yeah, now it's fine.
I wonder why it goes automatically. So the idea is just to share some insight, knowledge. Somebody like myself has been in the game all my life. I'm in my 50s now. I've traveled. I've had the privilege of traveling extensively because of football mainly. And I've experienced football in different cultures. I've worked around the African continent. I've had the privilege to work in Asian football in Vietnam and China. Also traveled the Asian continent. So I don't say I'm an expert, but I would love to share some of the insights. As we know, my concern is basically football in the developing world. That's on the African continent, major parts of Asia, and obviously Boys is in USA. He will tell you how the game is developing there. But I feel like people are still being marginalized, oppressed, and the right knowledge, the relevant knowledge is not going through to the people. I think the time for the cut and paste approach, a very generic approach, is over. For football to develop in various parts of the world, we have to localize the methodology. We have to, in Africa, we have to Africanize the content. What do we mean by that? It means that we have specific conditions. Our material conditions are different. Our environment are different. The majority of the players, the genetic makeup, the characteristics are vastly different from say, Western Europe or Northern Europe, where we tend to follow wholesale. Whatever happens there, we copy and paste it and adopt it unilaterally without looking whether it's suitable to our environment, suitable to our football cultures. Recently, FIFA themselves has been taking a very stronger stance on this, asking countries or even regions to come up with their own content. When I talk about content, I'm talking about coach education here, how to develop coaches, because obviously to develop quality players, we firstly got to develop coaches. And that is where my passion lies. That's where my interest lies. So for the past few years, we've been trying to develop a new breed of coach. We want to develop coaches who are critical thinkers, coaches who are innovators, plus coaches who are embedded with good values and morals. Recently, I've been doing some series of courses on executive education leadership through a UK-based organization. And one of the facilitators was talking about COVID is giving us a chance to develop a new breed of leaders coming out. And he talks about leaders generally, world leaders, sports leaders, and the works, because I think people are looking for authentic people. They're looking for honest leaders. They're looking for committed, passionate leaders. And I'm glad when I look at the people on this platform at the moment, I feel very warmly, optimistic about the future, because we have amongst this group here a new breed of coaches going forward, a new breed of, even if you have a person like Sipo who's a football journal, people who want to do their bit for humanity, people who want to come with a new way of thinking. And I think what's important, one of the important lessons I've learned recently is that this new way of thinking, in the new kind of leader we're looking for, the new kind of coach, you must have a track record. So a lot of you are involved in youth football. So we need people with a clean track record from youth football. We don't want coaches who are compromised, coaches who've been involved in age cheating, coaches who've been involved in match fixing, etc. You know, all those social evils that we know on. We want coaches who have a deep commitment to develop the game, coaches who are passionate, coaches who have strong, deep morals and ethics. Because without those fundamental principles, you would never become a good coach. You need to identify your passion in the game. You need to develop over the time your own identity. When I talk about identity, I'm not talking about your coaching philosophy, your style of play that you embrace. I'm talking about an identity as a coach. What kind of coach are you? What kind of leadership values are imbued in you? You know, so that is the important thing first to develop, is your own personal identity as a coach before you even start embracing or developing a football philosophy or an identity, whereby you embrace a certain style of play, a certain philosophy on how the game should be played. So the key thing is to develop your own identity as a coach, your own identity as an individual. That is, I think, a fundamental basis for being a successful coach, whether you're at youth level, senior level, professional level. So going back to what I really wanted to talk about was the current scenario we are faced on the African continent, in South Africa, on the Asian subcontinent, and obviously in USA, whereby how do we then come with a new way of thinking? We spoke about the cut and copy approach, whereby we just embrace anything that comes from so-called advanced footballing nations. There's nothing wrong with following modern trends. There's always a belief that principles are universal. We adopt the principles of modern scientific international trends. Those are universals. But your methodologies must be suitable to your country, right down to your club, or even the region. The methodologies adopted and embraced and implemented should be specific to your football. So when we talk about this, how is this made up? It's made up of your material conditions, where you live, where you play the game, who are your players, where do your players come from, what is the makeup, the attributes, the characteristics of the majority of your players. So these are the scientific approach that we take. Then you add your environmental conditions. The environment is inclusive of your altitude, your weather conditions, your humidity. Those conditions will differ from region to region. The environment conditions in Southern Africa, per se, will be different to environmental conditions in North Africa or West Africa. Then you add on to that the way we grow up. What is our cultures? What food do we eat? What is our diet? What is our nutrition? All these factors shape who we are, shape what kind of players we have. So hence, I say you cannot just unilaterally adopt any foreign or alien methodology and impose it on your players. A simple thing like foods that a Western European player eats might be different from the food a player that comes from KZN in South Africa, or a player that comes from Kerala in South India. So those are the things we need to look at, because the food we eat, the environment we live in, the society we live in, the cultures we grow up in, all shapes who we are. So when you do research, when you design your training programs, when you design your training concepts, your methodology, all these factors have to be taken in consideration. Yes, you could use other imported methodologies. It will give you a margin of success, if at most accidental. But to fully maximize performance of your players, to fully optimize your abilities as a coach, you have to design your own. But designing your own is not easy, as we all know. Hence, we take the lazy approach and we copy and paste. So firstly, you as a coach have got to learn in depth what are the principles that govern these things that we talk about. Once you have insight into the principles, once you understand the principles of training, once you understand the principles, the physiological makeup of your players, and the principles that are associated with that, then it becomes very easy to design your own specific training programs, your own exercises. We all want to copy and paste. We all want to be a Klopp. We all want to be a Pep. We all want to be whoever. But do we ask ourselves the question, why is a Pep, why is a Bielsa doing this exercise? We can all go online and download millions of exercises. But do we know the relevance? Do we know why that coach is doing that exercise? Do we know where that exercise fits in our cycles, in our microcycles, in our weekly training program, in our blocks, in our monthly training programs, in our yearly cycle? So we need to first understand the why. Hence, I say that the need for coaches who are critical thinkers. We cannot have coaches anymore who just cut and paste. We need coaches who read. We need coaches who learn. We need coaches who think. We need coaches who design things, innovative, creative. In our football environments on the African continent, in Asia, we don't have resources. We don't have equipment. We don't have the money to buy equipment. So we need coaches who are innovative, coaches who can use things that are lying around, stones. We grew up playing football in the street. We never have goalposts, but we used stones, we used cold drink bottles, we used different things, but we still grow up learning the game. So we need to be innovative, we need to be creative, and now resources are being available. So there's a lot of equipment out there, but how do we use those equipment to optimize the performance of our players? Majority of you coaches here are in the most critical phase. You are the most important coaches because you are youth development. If we don't develop the right type of players, there would not be professional football, there would not be international football. And this is one of the biggest problems we have in developing countries, is that we don't have quality coaches, hence we are not producing quality players. It's just our raw natural talent that are making some African clubs, African countries achieve internationally. But it's not sustainable because there's no long-term program in play. The same thing is happening on the Asian continent, aside from countries like possibly Japan or South Korea that have proper programs in place, long-term programs. I must say, in USA, they have taken huge strides. And hopefully in the weeks to come, Boys Khumalo is a coach based, a South African coach who played football in the USA, is now a coach. He will give us input going forward in the weeks to come on the major strides being taken there. But one of the downfalls of what's happening in America is they don't have a hybrid philosophy. They don't have a hybrid technical policy that addresses their football, because USA is very similar to what we have in South Africa. There's diversity there of people, of color, of creed. So that diversity is not really reflected in their football. In Asia, example, in India, you also have diversity. There might be all Indian people, but you have people who come from South India who are different from people who come from North India or West India. So these are the specifics that we as young coaches or coaches who are thinkers have to start looking into. A majority of the guys on this platform are from South Africa or Southern Africa. So we got to look at what are the specific nature of our players, of our football, and develop our programs according to that. We need to, it shouldn't be a hearsay or just something we pull out of the air. It should be scientific research. It should be based on science, on facts, so that no one can dispute it. And then these things we implement, we put it into practice, and it's a continuous program. We keep adjusting, we experiment. Hence I said this project goes back over 20 years. The late Ted Dimitri started, when he came to Africa, he started the project in Zambia. It went on to Swaziland, eventually came on into South Africa. The project on youth development started at the famed Chibuku Youth Academy and Coaches Academy that started at the Orlando Stadium in the late 80s, early 90s. That gave birth to the SchoolNet, the Transnet School of Excellence that was based at Esalen Park. And we all know the results from there. Over 100 players went on to play internationally. National teams played abroad, professional football. The project we got involved in was the Sundowns Paktawana project, that in the space of under 2 years, we had the privilege of seeing over 26 players going on to professional football and playing internationally also. So when we talk about a methodology, we talk about a methodology that's proven. It's not a methodology that's just on paper. That's just something we adopted from somewhere. We have been part of defining that methodology, adjusting it, evolving, and it will continue to evolve. With guys like you on board, we will continue evolving. What we do, we continually study what's international modern trends, not just modern trends. What are the future trends? What are the future trends, the near future trends? So we continually adjust and evolve the methodology. The methodology basically is a science-based methodology. It's brain-centered, whereby the brain, everything is activated, stimulated by the brain. The brain controls everything in the body. So it's a multi-factored approach. We moved away from the isolated approach. The isolated approach, we know, example, running for running, passing for running, in static positions. So this embraces a multi-factor approach. It includes the technique, it includes the mobility, that's the conditioning part. But the brain is the center of everything, because if the brain is not constantly stimulated, you first got to activate the brain. If the brain is not constantly activated, then the challenges are not imbued in the brain, in the player's brain. It's no more those days of producing players who are robots on the field, whereby a coach is remote controlling, telling a guy, Tabo, move up, Tabo, move down, Tabo, pass the ball. We as coaches have to do the work in training, whereby we teach players how to think. Players should find the solutions in training, so that when a match day comes, they have an array, an assortment of solutions already installed in their brain, so that they solve the situation that's on the field. So the brain simply, in football, the way we take it is like a computer. You got to design the software, load the software, and that software will give us the solutions going forward. So exactly that's how we want to create football players for the future. So you coaches are utmost important. We want to firstly create coaches who are thinkers, because to create players who are thinkers, you got to have coaches who are thinkers. To create creative players, we got to have creative coaches. So you guys are of utmost importance in this regard. And once again, I would like to say, yeah, I think just to wrap up, guys. So basically, this was the first session. We want to do it. We want to do possible weekly sessions where we will delve into specific topics. We will have a guest speaker every week. Plus, going forward, we would like the coaches from outside South Africa to possibly do a 5 to 7 minute presentation. So basically today, my part for the last 15, 20 minutes was just to give you guys an overview of the idea of what we have. We will close it up. Omar is the facilitator. We'll close it up with possibly 3 or 4 questions, and then we'll wrap it up, and we will then announce the next session will possibly be next week, same time. But from my side, I want to say thanks again to all you guys for coming on board, for sharing, for giving your time and your space on this. Over to you, Omar.
All right, thanks for this. That was really constructive. I would just like to give our I don't want to say foreign coaches or foreign guests, but guys outside of South Africa, maybe on the Asian side, the US, to share Vimal, Toy, those kind of guys, share your experiences with us in the few minutes or so that we still have.
Hi Omar, I'm Vimal Araya. I am an AFC A licensed coach based in Mumbai. It's a pleasure. Coach Sudesh has been guiding me a lot in terms of maximal training and how maximal training was approached in South Africa and what are its advantages. So, I just had a detailed study. He sent me a lot of materials and had a deep study about what maximal training is. And it has actually helped me open my horizon about coaching. So the most important thing is all about game intelligence. how do you develop players. So now, as everywhere, as Coach Sudesh and Omar have been discussing about, the coaches have been creating robots. So why it has been like that? So in India, it's the same thing. We just instruct the players what needs to be done, but instead of asking the players how to solve the problem by themselves. So it's just been,
Okay.
directional coaching rather than, stimulating their brain, propelling them to think for themselves, by putting them into certain conditions and situations. So, the things are changing in India slowly, but I know it's going to take time, and I won't take too much of your time. Thank you for the opportunity to, give a chance to speak. Over to you, Omar. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you. Tahir, your views?
Hello, coaches. My name is
Yes.
Mupulusi Raitanyi, assistant coach at Gilport Lions here in Botswana, a KFB license holder. I've been in touch with Coach Thabo over the years, and he has the privilege of visiting me here in Botswana sometimes last year. I'm looking forward to interacting with you guys. As I've already stated, I'm assistant coach in the Botswana Premier League, and we have the youngest squad in the league. So I hope this forum will be an eye opener in terms of how we can help and improve our players. More so that we use young players. Just touching on what you guys have been saying, I think it's all about maximal training, and I've had the privilege of doing chapter 1 and chapter 2. So I hope that as we discuss further, I will be able to provide some input and also learn a lot from you guys. I think this initiative is very important. It's good for Southern Africa. It's good for Africa as a whole. We really must work together as coaches, African coaches, if we really want to improve the standard of our football. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Maya or Tahir, what's your views?
Hi, this is Ameya from India. I'm AFCB license holder. So firstly, I would like to thank Mr. Vimal for giving me the opportunity to connect with everyone over here. And I would like to thank Sudesh sir for taking this initiative ahead, for bringing in coaches from all around the globe to discuss the issues that everyone might be facing in a developing football country. So like Vimal sir rightly said that in India specifically, the problem is that we expect the players to be creative and improvise without we doing it ourselves. So good insight, and I hope that in the next meetings or the next sessions can connect with everyone and go in the details of how we can bring about the change in our own club or academy wherever we are working and gradually pass it on to the city, state, and country. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maya, for your contribution. Tahir, you still with us? Tahir van der Jaar? Tahir. Yes, sir. Tahir.
Hi, hello.
Yes, Tahir.
Hi, yeah, sorry, it's Siobhan. The line, the sound was quite bad. I wasn't, couldn't hear you getting my attention. No, well, look,
Yes.
yeah, well, I'm from South Africa. Also development coach, primary school level and that sort of thing. Working on obtaining my software license and what have you. But also looking forward and eager to be part of the forum and in terms of aiding and assisting with regards to developing the kids. And as the other coach said from India, that the expectation is, and like Coach Suresh said, depending on your ethnicity, your culture, your background, there's a certain norm or standard that people have a perception about what your skill should be like, which is incorrect. and us as coaches been able to allow the players, been able to think for themselves, giving them, planting the seed, so making them have that creativity on and off the field with regards to what type of player and person they'll be. Because I found with some of my boys that I deal with regards to cricket, they actually are ADD and ADHD. So that's on a different level compared to coaching just a normal person. And what I've come to find is once you bring a person out of their shell and give them that confidence, they actually become a better person and a better player. So with that said, good to be a part of it. Look forward to the sessions going forward and hope to make a good contribution to what we're working on here.
I'd like to what you're saying. I'm also a special needs educator, and I use Maximal training with my ADHD, my autistic, my OCD learners. I think they're enjoying treated as a normal footballer, not as a special needs footballer. So yeah, King, you want to add something, or Boise, or Toronto in the US?
I don't have much to say, man. I just want to say thank you guys for the invite. And maybe we should create like a WhatsApp group so everybody's on the same page and we can share information that way instead of waiting to get on Zoom. I think that would be good. So whoever's in charge, you can get everybody's number and just create a WhatsApp group and, we can get to know each other that way too. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, boys.
Okay, cool. I'll just go. Firstly, thank you for the opportunity to be a part of this very interesting and diverse group of people, group of coaches. Something that I think we need to specialize in as well, from an African perspective, is the psyche of the players. So as a sports scientist, there is so many aspects that you can use to actually maximize a player. And one of the key areas that we seem to neglect is the psyche of the players. So their reason for playing, keeping them focused on that, especially as they grow up through the different ages. They can get caught up in a lot of things that are not helpful for their careers and for their future. So I think just to kind of stimulate their mind as well and keep them interested in the sport. So a lot of expressive drills, let them express who they are on the field. I've worked with coaches who don't approve of that, but as far as I know, in the spaces that I've worked in, when players enjoy themselves, when players have a good when they are in a good mental state, everything then flows from a performance perspective, from a decision-making perspective, even from a recovery perspective. Everything just flows better. So I think that's something we need to touch on as well, because there also might be an inferiority complex in terms of being African compared to the rest of the world. We're not European, so everyone wants to be a European, but no one wants to be an African. So I think it's important that we do touch on the psyche and kind of build the confidence of African players. Because if you look at it right now, African players are number one in the world. You look at the Premier League, it's just African players that have been dominating in terms of goal scoring, in terms of assist making, in terms of players of the season. It's African players. So I think it's time that we preach the message of owning your African identity, and I think that's very important going forward. But I look forward to this engagement once more. And yeah, thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Devin. Thank you very much. I think we I don't know if Zoom is allowing us to go beyond our 40 minutes for 3 or more participants in the meeting, but whilst we can go on, Galaxy 7 Duos, share your views with us.
Thank you, everyone. It's been a real pleasure. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Hi there. Thank you, everybody, for joining, for today's, for being all the guys who made a contribution. Hopefully, I will send an email out today so that we can get a mailing list of everybody, as well as WhatsApp details, so that we can get a WhatsApp group started. and so that we can also do video calling one another to share ideas. If something is not clear enough for coaches, then there's always somebody that we can refer you to clarify something, to share our own experiences, some valuable contributions made by everybody. And wherever we are based, we can tap into everybody's knowledge, especially the indigenous knowledge that we have amongst one another, and then we can really make a big difference in Thank you everybody for joining us. We'll touch base very soon. We'll be all in lockdown, so I don't expect to go back to school very soon. But thank you everybody. Stay safe, stay home, and until we chat again. Bye bye.